Hi, folks. The story of today's project really begins when I was contemplating what I was going to do for a sitting pilot figure to go in the cockpit of this False D8 from Aviatik, which I built last year. The kit did come with a pilot figure, a standing pilot figure of Paul Bäumer, a German ace during the Great War. But I really didn't want to try to chop him up and squeeze him in some way into the cockpit. So I thought I would go to my existing inventory of resin pilot figures, both kits unpainted as well as those that I'd already assembled and were just waiting for a ride. And that was the next step as I came to completion, actually long before I came to completing this particular build. At the time I was making my selection or choice, I think these were the 5 most suitable candidates to be the pilot figure or a kit that was a replica of one of these pilot figures. 2 of these are actually RFC figures, 3 are German, but any of them would have done in some respect, assuming that any of them would fit into the cockpit. Well, none of them were going to fit without surgery. The first 4 here, starting from left to right, were going to require a huge amount of surgery. So almost by default, this figure, or it's a duplicate of this figure, maybe was what I was going to use or start with in terms of fitting this pilot into the cockpit after surgery. And that's what I began. I made that choice then almost by default and proceeded accordingly. So the figure on the left of the screen was the stock kit, also from Aviatik, resin German pilot. And I did use a duplicate, or I had a second kit like that. I used the body, which I knew I was going to have to carve it up significantly to get it fit, and proceeded from there, carving, sizing, back and forth, back and forth. Ideally, I wanted to be able to have a figure that I could slip in and out of the plane after it was assembled. I succeeded in that, but there was a lot of chopping involved. But the story gets a bit more complicated. If you look closely, you'll see that it doesn't have the same head. No, that head came from another figure I already had and had painted 4 years earlier. But I just thought it was the right pilot head for the figure and would look really good in the Aviatik. So I proceeded to do a decapitation and then patched in that head onto this figure, and that ends the story. Well, I guess we should put him in the plane right now, huh? Okay. He does indeed fit. So I dropped him back in the cockpit, and the story ends, right? Well, I do have a standing pilot figure, now headless, that I'm either going to toss or do some repair work on, and so began today's project. And of course, I also had a Paul Bäumer figure, standing figure, and yes, you might have guessed it. Maybe not, but that's the next part of the story. So I did another head swap, and the head from the standing Paul Bäumer figure that came with the False D8 is now on the figure to the right of the screen. And if you remember, that's where I got the head for the pilot figure that's in the plane. Took a lot of work, actually. The only thing that was quick about the process was decapitating Paul's head from the figure on the left of the screen. But I pretty much had to completely repaint the figure to the right of the screen in the green jumpsuit. But that's okay. I was never really that happy with my initial or first paint job on Paul, and I think I improved him a lot. And didn't really destroy my original figure in the green jumpsuit. Now, of course, I'll have to see about putting a head on this guy in the headless pilot in the black leather jacket. Obviously, perhaps not so obviously, I've got a lot of heads to choose from. I'll find something appropriate. But right now, I'm just happy that I finally attended to restoring this guy, this figure, and I'll set about doing something about him. Ideally not from an existing figure, because that'll just keep the whole the whole cycle going. I better start with a new resin head for this pilot figure. And if I stop fiddling around with this stuff, I might get back to that P-38 build. By the time I get through all this stuff, the extra materials and paints should have arrived. Thanks for watching.